The champagne glass slipped from Evelyn Hale's hand, shattering against the marble floor of the grand ballroom. But the sound was drowned out by the 500 guests applauding her husband's speech. No one noticed. No one except her. Because she wasn't looking at the broken glass. She was staring at the small boy who had just run across the stage and wrapped his arms around Adrian Hale's legs. And she had heard what the child said. "Daddy." Adrian's face went white. For a man who commanded boardrooms and negotiated billion-dollar deals without flinching, he looked utterly paralyzed. His hand hovered above the boy's head, frozen mid-gesture, as though touching the child would make this moment real. The applause continued. She watched her husband's lips move. Watched him lean down and whisper something to the boy. Watched a staff member hurry forward and gently guide the child away from the stage. Adrian straightened his tie, flashed that practiced smile that had charmed investors for 2 decades, and finished his speech about the importance of supporting vulnerable children. The irony wasn't lost on Evelyn. When Adrian finally descended from the stage 40 minutes later, his smile had already reset. He moved through the crowd with the grace of a man who owned the room, shaking hands, accepting congratulations, posing for photographs. Evelyn stood by his side as she always did, her own smile perfectly calibrated, her champagne glass replaced, her composure unshakable. To the outside world, they were the golden couple. Adrian Hale, CEO of Hale Industries, and Evelyn Hale, former corporate attorney turned philanthropist. Married for 7 years. No children. By choice, everyone assumed. But that word kept echoing in Evelyn's mind. "Daddy." "Wonderful speech, Adrian," Senator Morrison said, clapping him on the shoulder. "That bit about giving children a second chance was particularly moving." "Thank you, Senator. It's a cause close to my heart." Close to his heart. Evelyn felt something cold settle in her chest. They didn't speak in the limousine on the way home. Adrian scrolled through his phone, responding to messages about the gala's success. Evelyn stared out the window at the city lights, her reflection ghostly in the glass. "The Hartfield Foundation pledged $2 million, Adrian said, breaking the silence. "And Morrison promised to push the education bill through committee." "That's good," Evelyn replied, her voice distant. "You're quiet." "I'm tired." He reached for her hand. She let him take it, but she didn't squeeze back. Adrian noticed. Of course he noticed. He noticed everything. It was what made him dangerous in negotiations and, apparently, in marriage. Their penthouse was dark when they arrived. The city sprawled below them through floor-to-ceiling windows, a sea of lights that usually made Evelyn feel powerful. Tonight, it just felt cold. She kicked off her heels and walked to the bar, pouring herself a scotch. Adrian watched her from the doorway. "Evelyn. Who was that child?" The silence stretched between them like a chasm. "I can explain." "Then explain." She turned to face him, the scotch untouched in her hand. "Explain why a child just called you daddy in front of 500 people. Explain why you looked like you'd seen a ghost. Explain why I had no idea this child existed." Hello family, welcome to Story Heart Studio, where stories touch the heart. If you love emotional, powerful stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Adrian loosened his tie, a gesture she recognized. He did it when he was buying time, calculating his next move. "His name is Noah," he said finally. "I adopted him 6 months ago." The scotch glass trembled in Evelyn's hand. "You what?" "Through the foundation. It was a private arrangement. The mother was dying, and she begged me to take him. He needed a home, and I." "You adopted a child." Evelyn's voice was deadly calm. "You adopted a child without telling me." "I was going to tell you." "When?" "When he graduated college." Adrian stepped forward, hands raised in a placating gesture. "Evelyn, please. Let me explain properly. It happened so fast. The mother, she was in the hospital, dying of cancer, and she had no other family. The boy would have gone into the system, and I couldn't." "Stop." Evelyn held up her hand. "Stop talking for a second and let me think." She set down the scotch and pressed her palms against her temples. 6 months. He'd been parenting a child for 6 months, and she hadn't known. How was that even possible? "Where is he?" she asked quietly. "He lives at the Foundation's residential facility. It's temporary until..." "Until what?" "Until you figured out how to tell your wife you'd adopted a child behind her back." "It's not like that." "Then what is it like, Adrian? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you made a life-altering decision without including me. Your wife. Your partner." He ran his hand through his hair, another tell. He was stressed. "Good. The legal arrangements were complicated," he said. "I used the Foundation's resources to expedite the adoption. It was faster that way. Cleaner. Cleaner." Evelyn laughed, a bitter sound. "You mean secretive." "I mean efficient. Evelyn, the boy was in crisis. His mother was dying. I couldn't just..." "You've never wanted children." The realization hit her like a physical blow. "We agreed. You said adoption was too complicated, that we were happy as we are." "That was 3 years ago, Adrian. 3 years ago, when I brought up adoption, you said it wasn't for us." His jaw tightened. "This was different." "How? How was this different?" "Because his mother asked me specifically. She knew me. She trusted me. She knew you." Evelyn's voice dropped to a whisper. "Who was she?" Adrian turned away, walking to the window. His reflection stared back at him, a man cornered by his own choices. "Someone from my past." The pieces started falling into place. The resemblance she'd noticed when the boy ran on stage. Those dark curls. Those eyes. "Lena," Evelyn breathed. It was Lena Brooks. Adrian's shoulders stiffened, and Evelyn knew she was right. Lena Brooks. The woman Adrian had loved before Evelyn. The woman he'd dated for 5 years before she disappeared from his life without explanation. Adrian had always been vague about the breakup, saying only that they'd wanted different things. Evelyn had never pressed for details. She'd been confident in their relationship, secure in the knowledge that whatever Adrian had felt for Lena was ancient history. But history, apparently, had a child. "She died 6 months ago," Adrian said quietly. "Cancer. By the time they diagnosed it, it was already stage 4. She had maybe 3 weeks left when she contacted me. And she asked you to take her son." "Yes. Her son." Evelyn emphasized the words. "Not your son." Adrian didn't respond. "Adrian." Her voice sharpened. "Not your son. Right?" He turned slowly, and the look on his face told her everything she needed to know. "Oh my God." Evelyn sank onto the sofa. "He's yours. That child is yours." Lena said he wasn't. "But you think he is." "I don't know." "Don't lie to me." The words exploded from her. "Don't you dare lie to me anymore. You looked at that child, and you saw yourself. That's why you adopted him. That's why you hid him from me." Adrian crossed the room and knelt in front of her, trying to take her hands. She pulled away. "Evelyn, I swear to you," Lena insisted, "he wasn't mine." She said the father was someone else, someone who wasn't in the picture. When she asked me to take Noah, she said it was because she trusted me, not because. And you believed her? A woman dying of cancer, desperate to place her child, and you just believed her when she said you weren't the father? What was I supposed to do? Demand a DNA test while she was dying? Yes. Evelyn stood abruptly, forcing Adrian to back up. Yes, that's exactly what you should have done. Or better yet, you should have come to me. Your wife. The woman you promised to share your life with. You should have told me that your ex-lover was dying and wanted you to adopt her child. We could have figured it out together. I couldn't. Why not? Because you would have asked questions I didn't want to answer. The admission hung between them, raw and honest. Evelyn felt tears prick her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. What questions, Adrian? He looked away. About why Lena left. About what happened between us. I'm asking now. Evelyn. Tell me the truth. All of it. Or I walk out that door right now. She meant it. He could see it in her eyes. Adrian Hale, the man who'd built an empire on his ability to read people, recognized when he'd lost the room. He sank into the chair across from her, suddenly looking every one of his 42 years. Lena left because she was pregnant, he said quietly. 7 years ago. She found out she was pregnant, and she left without telling me. Evelyn's breath caught. 7 years ago. That was right before we met. Yes. So this child, Noah, he's 6 years old. The math lined up perfectly. Too perfectly. She ran away rather than tell you about the baby, Evelyn said slowly. Why? I don't know. By the time I tried to find her, she'd vanished completely. Changed her number. Moved. I hired investigators, but she didn't want to be found. And you never told me any of this. What was I supposed to say? That my ex-girlfriend disappeared while potentially pregnant with my child? That I spent months searching for her? How do you think that would have sounded? Like the truth, Evelyn said coldly. It would have sounded like the truth. Adrian leaned forward, elbows on his knees. When Lena contacted me 6 months ago, she was already dying. She said she'd kept the baby, raised him alone. She said he needed a father, and she was asking me to be that person. But she denied he was yours. She said the timing was complicated. That there was someone else. She never gave me a straight answer, Evelyn. She was dying, and she was desperate, and his voice cracked. I couldn't turn my back on a child who might be mine. Evelyn closed her eyes. Part of her understood. Part of her even sympathized. But the betrayal was too fresh, too deep. You had choices, she said. You could have told me. You could have insisted on a paternity test. You could have involved me in any of this. Instead, you lied. I didn't lie. I just. Omission is still lying, Adrian. You know that. He had no answer to that. Evelyn stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city that suddenly felt like a cage. Behind her reflection, she could see Adrian's form, slumped in the chair like a man defeated. I need to see the adoption papers, she said. Evelyn. The adoption papers, Adrian. All of them. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Within 30 minutes, a courier arrived with a thick manila envelope. Adrian signed for it without speaking and handed it to Evelyn. She spread the documents across the dining room table, scanning each page with the trained eye of an attorney. What she found made her stomach turn. I'm not on these, she said quietly. What? The adoption papers. I'm not listed as an adoptive parent. It's just you. Adrian approached the table slowly. The Foundation's attorney said it would be faster if. Faster. Evelyn looked up at him. Or more secret? This way, the adoption is entirely yours. I have no legal claim to this child. No rights. No say. That's not why. Then why, Adrian? Why exclude your wife from adopting a child? He had no answer. Or maybe he did, but he couldn't bring himself to say it. Evelyn gathered the papers and slipped them back into the envelope. I want to meet him. What? Noah. I want to meet him. Evelyn, I don't think that's a good idea right now. You're upset, Anne. I'm upset. She laughed, a hollow sound. I'm upset. How perceptive of you. Yes, Adrian, I'm upset that my husband secretly adopted a child who's probably his biological son. I'm upset that he lied to me for 6 months. I'm upset that apparently my marriage isn't what I thought it was. But I still want to meet this child. Tomorrow. Adrian ran his hand through his hair again, agitated. Let me arrange it properly. Let me talk to him first, prepare him. Fine. Tomorrow afternoon. I'll clear my schedule. She walked toward the bedroom, then stopped at the door. I'll be sleeping in the guest room, she said without turning around. Don't follow me. Evelyn. I mean it, Adrian. Give me space. You owe me that much. She closed the door before he could respond, leaning against it as the tears finally came. 7 years of marriage. 7 years of trust. And in one evening, it had all crumbled. But even as she cried, Evelyn's mind was already working, already asking the questions that needed answers. If Noah was Adrian's son, why had Lena hidden him for 6 years? What had she been afraid of? And why, after all that time, had she trusted Adrian with her dying wish? Evelyn pulled out her phone and scrolled to a name she hadn't called in years. Margaret Chen, private investigator. They'd worked together on corporate cases when Evelyn had still practiced law. The phone rang 3 times before a familiar voice answered. Evelyn Hale. It's been a while. I need your help, Evelyn said quietly. And I need you to be discreet. Always am. What do you need? Everything you can find on a woman named Lena Brooks. She died 6 months ago. I need to know where she's been for the last 7 years, who she associated with, and, Evelyn's voice hardened. I need to know about her son. There was a pause on the other end. This personal or professional? Both. Understood. I'll start tonight. Anything else? Evelyn looked at the envelope of adoption papers on the bed where she'd thrown them. Yes. I need to know if there's any way to contest an adoption after it's been finalized. Any loopholes, any legal grounds. Margaret whistled low. That's a tall order. Adoption law is designed to protect the child's placement. But I'll see what I can dig up. This about the Hale Foundation adoption that's been in the news? So it had made the news. Of course it had. Adrian's charitable work was always newsworthy. Yes, Evelyn admitted. I'll be in touch. Evelyn ended the call and sat on the edge of the guest bed, still in her gala gown. Through the wall, she could hear Adrian moving around in their bedroom. Their bedroom. Was it still theirs? Or had that changed too? She thought about the boy who'd called him Daddy. Noah. 6 years old. Dark curls. Eyes that reminded her of someone. And suddenly, she knew whose eyes they were. She'd seen a photograph once, years ago, in Adrian's office. He'd forgotten to put it away before she arrived for lunch. A photo of a young woman with dark curls and eyes that seemed to see right through the camera. Adrian had apologized, said it was just an old photo he'd found while cleaning, but Evelyn had recognized the look on his face when he'd held it. Lena Brooks. And now her son had those same eyes. Evelyn stripped off her gown and wrapped herself in a robe, then sat at the guest room desk and opened her laptop. She started with social media, searching for any trace of Lena Brooks. Most profiles were locked or belonged to different people, but she found one that seemed right. The account had been inactive for 7 years. The last post was a photo of a sunset with a caption that made Evelyn's blood run cold: "Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away." She scrolled through older posts. Lena at art galleries. Lena at restaurants. And there, buried in a post from 8 years ago, was a photo of her with Adrian, his arm around her shoulders, both of them laughing at something off camera. The comments were full of heart emojis and congratulations. Evelyn clicked on the date. It was from Adrian's birthday party. 2 months before Evelyn had met him. She closed the laptop, her hands shaking. The woman Adrian had loved before her had been more than just a girlfriend. She'd been someone he'd celebrated birthdays with, someone he'd laughed with, someone he'd clearly loved deeply enough that her disappearance had sent him searching for months. And then that woman had reappeared, dying, with a child she claimed wasn't his but probably was. Evelyn understood why Adrian had hidden this. She understood the fear, the confusion, the impossible situation. But understanding didn't erase the betrayal. She lay down on the guest bed, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow, she would meet Noah. Tomorrow, she would look into the eyes of the child who might be her husband's son. And then she would decide what came next. Because one thing was clear, the life she'd thought she had was gone. The marriage she'd believed in had been built on incomplete truths. And now she had to figure out if there was anything left worth saving. Or if, like Lena Brooks, the bravest thing she could do was walk away. But even as the thought crossed her mind, Evelyn knew she wouldn't walk away. Not yet. Not until she knew the whole truth. And the truth, she suspected, was far more complicated than Adrian had admitted. She fell asleep with that thought, exhausted and heartbroken, while in the next room, her husband sat awake, holding his phone and staring at a photo of a little boy. The Foundation's residential facility was nothing like Evelyn had imagined. She'd expected something institutional, sterile. Instead, it was a renovated Victorian mansion in the suburbs, painted soft blue with white trim, gardens blooming with late summer flowers. Adrian pulled into the circular driveway and killed the engine. Neither of them had spoken during the 40-minute drive. "He doesn't know you're coming," Adrian said quietly. "What does he know?" "That I'm his guardian. That he lives here temporarily while we figure out permanent arrangements." "Does he know about me?" Adrian's silence was answer enough. Evelyn unbuckled her seatbelt. "Let's get this over with." The facility director, a warm woman named Sarah Castellanos, met them at the door. If she was surprised to see Evelyn, she didn't show it. "Mr. Hale, good to see you. Noah's in the art room. He's been asking about you." "Thank you, Sarah." They followed her through halls decorated with children's artwork and photographs. Evelyn could hear laughter from somewhere deeper in the building, the sound of children playing. The art room was at the back of the house, flooded with natural light. Several children sat at tables, painting and drawing under the supervision of a young teacher. But Evelyn's eyes went immediately to the boy sitting alone by the window. Noah. He was smaller than she'd expected, slight for 6 years old. He was drawing something with intense concentration, his tongue poking out slightly as he worked. When he heard footsteps, he looked up, and his face lit up. "Adrian." He ran across the room and threw himself at Adrian with the unself-conscious affection of a child who'd found someone to trust. Adrian caught him, and Evelyn saw his expression transform into something she'd never seen before. Pure, uncomplicated love. "Hey, buddy," Adrian said, kneeling to the boy's level. "I want you to meet someone. This is Evelyn." Noah turned to look at her, and Evelyn felt her breath catch. Up close, the resemblance was even more striking. He had Adrian's nose. His chin. The shape of his face. But those eyes were all Lena. "Hi," Noah said shyly. "Hi, Noah." Evelyn managed a smile. "What are you drawing?" He brightened and ran back to the table, returning with a piece of paper covered in crayon. It was a house with a tree and 2 stick figures. "That's me and Adrian," he explained, pointing to the figures. "At the park. We go on Saturdays sometimes." "It's very good," Evelyn said, and meant it. Noah beamed at the praise, then looked back at Adrian. "Are you staying? Can we go to the park today?" "Not today, buddy. But soon. I promise." The boy's face fell, and Evelyn felt an unexpected surge of emotion. Whatever else was true, this child was innocent. He hadn't asked for any of this. "Can I talk to Noah alone?" The words came out before she'd planned them. Adrian looked uncertain. "Evelyn, I don't think." "Please." Something in her voice made him nod. He squeezed Noah's shoulder. "I'll be right outside with Sarah, okay? You talk to Evelyn." When they were alone, Noah climbed back into his chair and picked up his crayons. Evelyn sat across from him, watching him color. "Do you like it here?" she asked. Noah shrugged. "It's okay. Miss Sarah is nice. And the other kids are mostly nice too." "Mostly?" "Tommy pulls hair sometimes. But Marcus told him to stop." Evelyn smiled despite herself. "That's good. Friends should look out for each other." Noah added green to his tree, carefully staying within the lines. "Are you Adrian's friend?" "I'm his wife." The boy processed this, his young face serious. "Like married?" "Yes." "Oh." He was quiet for a moment, then asked, "Does that mean you're going to live with him?" "I already do." "Really? In a house?" "In an apartment. A big one, with lots of windows." Noah's eyes widened. "Can you see the park from there?" "We can see lots of parks. And the river. And all the buildings lit up at night." He considered this, then went back to coloring. "Mama used to say she'd take me to see the city one day. But then she got sick." Evelyn's throat tightened. "I'm sorry about your mama." "Me too." His voice was matter-of-fact in the way children's voices are when they're trying to be brave. "She was really sick at the end. She couldn't even read me stories anymore. That must have been hard." "Yeah." He added blue to his sky, creating clouds. "But she said Adrian would take care of me. She said he was good at taking care of people." "Was he?" Evelyn wasn't sure anymore. "Noah, did your mama ever talk about me?" He shook his head. "She just talked about Adrian. She showed me pictures and told me stories about when they were friends." "Friends? Is that what Lena had called it? What kind of stories?" Noah brightened. "Like how they went to museums and ate fancy food and laughed a lot. Mama said Adrian made her laugh more than anyone." Past tense. Made. As if that laughter had ended long ago. Evelyn watched the boy color, his small hands working with careful precision. She thought about Adrian's face when Noah had hugged him. She thought about the adoption papers with only one name on them. She thought about 7 years of marriage built on what she believed was complete honesty. "Noah, can I ask you something?" "Okay. Did your mama ever talk about why she and Adrian stopped being friends?" The boy paused, crayon hovering over paper. "She said sometimes people have to say goodbye even when they don't want to. She said she had to go away to keep me safe." "Keep him safe? From what? From whom? Did she say safe from what?" Noah shrugged. "She got sad when I asked too many questions. So I stopped asking." Smart kid. And heartbreaking. Adrian appeared in the doorway, looking anxious. "Everything okay?" "Fine," Evelyn said, standing. She looked down at Noah. "It was very nice to meet you. Will you come back?" The question was so hopeful it hurt. "Maybe. We'll see. In the car, Adrian gripped the steering wheel but didn't start the engine. What did you talk about? He told me about Lena. About what she said about you. And I need to know the truth, Adrian. All of it. Why did Lena leave? What was she afraid of? And don't tell me you don't know, because I won't believe you. He was quiet for a long moment, then started the car. Not here, he said. At home. The drive back felt eternal. Evelyn watched the suburbs give way to the city, watched the buildings grow taller, watched their life together approach like a storm on the horizon. When they finally reached the penthouse, Adrian poured himself a drink. Evelyn waited, standing by the window, arms crossed. 7 years ago, when Lena got pregnant, we were having problems, Adrian began. I was building the company. Working 18-hour days. I missed dinners. I forgot plans. I was obsessed with success. That's not a reason to hide a pregnancy. No. But it's context. He took a drink. Lena wanted a family. I told her I wasn't ready. We fought about it constantly. And then she got pregnant. By accident? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. He set down his glass. She said she wanted to keep it. I panicked. I told her it was bad timing. That we should wait. That I needed to focus on the company. Evelyn felt cold. You asked her to get an abortion. I suggested it was an option. I didn't demand it. But I made it clear that having a baby right then would complicate everything I was trying to build. So she left. So she left. Adrian's voice was hollow. Without warning. She packed her things while I was at work and disappeared. Changed her number. Moved out of state. I tried to find her, Evelyn. I swear I did. But she didn't want to be found. And you never told me any of this. What was I supposed to say? That I'd driven away the woman I loved because I chose my career over starting a family? That I'd spent months looking for her, wondering if she'd kept the baby, wondering if I was a father somewhere and didn't know it? Yes, Evelyn said fiercely. That's exactly what you should have said. When we talked about not having children, when we agreed it wasn't for us, you should have told me the truth. That you'd already walked away from one chance at fatherhood. Adrian flinched. I was ashamed. And now? You adopted that boy, Adrian. You brought him into your life. Why? He turned to face her, and she saw tears in his eyes. Because when Lena called me from the hospital, dying, begging me to take care of her son, I couldn't say no again. I couldn't abandon another chance. Even if he isn't biologically mine, he's mine in every way that matters. And I'm terrified, Evelyn. I'm terrified that if I admit he might be my biological son, I'll have to face everything I threw away 7 years ago. The confession hung between them, raw and painful. Evelyn walked to the bar and poured herself the scotch she hadn't drunk the night before. I want a DNA test, she said quietly. Evelyn. I need to know the truth. And so do you. We can't build anything on maybes and assumptions. It doesn't matter if he's biologically mine. I'm his guardian either way. It matters to me. She met his eyes. It matters because if he's yours, then Lena lied. And I need to know why she lied. What she was protecting him from. What she was protecting you from. Or protecting herself from, Adrian said quietly. Evelyn hadn't considered that. What do you mean? Lena's family had money. Old money. Conservative money. If she'd had a child out of wedlock, especially with someone they didn't approve of, they would have cut her off. She would have had nothing. So she chose poverty over telling them about Noah? Or she chose freedom. Lena always hated her family's expectations. Maybe the pregnancy gave her an excuse to finally break free. It was plausible. But it didn't explain everything. "I'm calling my investigator," Evelyn said. "I'm going to find out everything about Lena's last 7 years. And then we're doing a DNA test. And then, Adrian, we're going to figure out if our marriage can survive this." She expected him to argue. To protest. To try to control the situation like he controlled everything else. Instead, he just nodded. "Okay," he said quietly. "Whatever you need." It was the surrender she demanded. But it felt hollow. Because now that she had permission to uncover the truth, Evelyn wasn't sure she wanted to know what she'd find. If this story is resonating with you, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to Storyheart Studio. Your support helps us bring you more stories that truly touch the heart. Margaret Chen worked fast. 3 days later, she called Evelyn with preliminary findings. "You're going to want to sit down for this," Margaret said. Evelyn was in her home office, Adrian at work, the penthouse quiet around her. "I'm sitting. Tell me." Lena Brooks moved to Portland 7 years ago under her maiden name. She worked as a freelance graphic designer, kept a low profile, paid her taxes. Clean record. But here's the interesting part, she had money. A lot of it. Inheritance? No. Monthly deposits into her account from an offshore trust. $30,000 a month, like clockwork, for 6 years. Evelyn's pulse quickened. Where was it coming from? That's where it gets murky. The trust is registered in the Cayman Islands. Shell company after shell company. But I tracked it back to a holding company that's owned by, Margaret paused for effect. The Brooks Family Trust. Her family was sending her money? Appears so. But it stopped 8 months ago, right around when she got diagnosed. The last payment bounced. By then, she was probably already sick, already making plans for Noah. Evelyn processed this. So she did have family support. She wasn't destitute. Why did she need Adrian? That's the question, isn't it? But there's more. I pulled hospital records from when Noah was born. Lena gave birth in Portland, but she listed no father on the birth certificate. No family visited her during her hospital stay. No one at all, actually. She checked herself in, gave birth alone, and left 2 days later with the baby. Alone. Evelyn tried to imagine giving birth with no one there to support you, no one to hold your hand or celebrate the baby's arrival. What about friends? Colleagues? She kept to herself. Neighbors describe her as friendly but private. She worked from home, raised Noah alone. According to the woman in the apartment next door, Lena was devoted to that kid. Everything she did was for him. And when she got sick? Margaret's voice softened. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Diagnosis to death in 12 weeks. She spent her last month making arrangements for Noah, trying to find him a placement. She contacted Adrian 3 weeks before she died. 3 weeks. Adrian had 3 weeks to make one of the biggest decisions of his life. Did she contact anyone else? Try to place Noah with anyone else? Not that I can find. She went straight to Adrian. Why? After 7 years of silence, 7 years of raising Noah alone, why reach out to the man she'd run from? I need you to dig deeper into the Brooks family, Evelyn said. Find out why they were paying her. Find out if they knew about Noah. Already on it. Give me a week. Evelyn ended the call and stared at her notes. The pieces were there, but they didn't fit together yet. A woman who ran away pregnant. A family that supported her financially but apparently never visited. A child raised in secret. A dying wish that returned that child to the man she'd run from. Her phone buzzed. Adrian. Can we talk tonight? After I put Noah to bed? Put Noah to bed. As if this was normal now. As if Adrian was a father, just like that. Fine. 8 o'clock. When Adrian arrived home that evening, he looked exhausted. He'd been spending every afternoon with Noah, she knew. Working half days, then driving out to the facility to be with the boy. How is he? Evelyn asked, surprising herself with the genuine concern in her voice. Good. Happy. He made a friend. Marcus. They're building a fort out of cardboard boxes. Despite everything, Evelyn smiled. That's good. Adrian loosened his tie and sat across from her. You wanted to talk. I hired an investigator. To look into Lena's life. His jaw tightened. Evelyn. She found some things. Things I think you need to know. She told him about the money. About the offshore payments. About Lena giving birth alone. With each revelation, Adrian's expression grew more troubled. I didn't know about any money, he said when she finished. Lena never mentioned it. When she called me, she said she had nothing, that Noah would end up in foster care if I didn't help. Maybe she didn't consider it her money. It came from her family, after all. A family she supposedly wanted nothing to do with. A family that apparently supported her anyway. Evelyn leaned forward. Adrian, why would they pay her for 6 years and then stop? What changed? Maybe they found out about Noah. And cut her off for having a child out of wedlock? In the 21st century? Adrian shook his head. You don't know the Brooks family. Lena's father is old school. Reputation is everything. If he found out she'd had a child without being married, especially if he thought. He stopped himself. If he thought what? Evelyn pressed. Adrian met her eyes. If he thought I was the father. He hated me. Said I was a social climber with no family name. When Lena and I were together, he made it clear I wasn't good enough for his daughter. Finally, the truth started to make sense. She was afraid of him, Evelyn said slowly. That's why she ran. She knew if she told you she was pregnant, if she stayed, her father would find out. He'd know you were the father. He'd cut her off, maybe worse. But she got money from him anyway. Maybe he didn't know about Noah. Maybe she convinced him she'd moved away for her career, and he supported her as long as she stayed away from you. Adrian stood and walked to the window, his silhouette dark against the city lights. She gave up everything rather than be with me, he said quietly. Her family. Her home. The life she knew. She raised our son alone in a strange city, took money from a father she despised, all to keep Noah away from me. We don't know for sure he's yours. Yes, we do. Adrian turned to face her. I've always known, Evelyn. From the moment I saw him. He's mine. I just didn't want to admit it because admitting it meant admitting I'd lost 7 years of his life. The confession hung between them. Then we do the test, Evelyn said. We confirm it legally. And then we figure out what comes next. What if there is no next? Adrian's voice cracked. What if knowing the truth just makes everything worse? The truth already made everything worse. Now we deal with the consequences. She called a genetic testing service the next morning. They could arrange a legal paternity test, admissible in court if needed. All it required was a cheek swab from Adrian and from Noah. What do we tell him? Adrian asked. They were sitting in the Foundation's visiting room, waiting for Noah to finish his morning activities. Nothing yet, Evelyn said. The test is painless. We tell him it's for medical records. To make sure we know his family health history. That's a lie. It's a protective lie. He's 6, Adrian. He doesn't need to know we're determining paternity. Noah burst into the room before Adrian could respond, his face bright with excitement. "Evelyn! You came back!" The boy's enthusiasm caught her off guard. She'd visited 3 times now, always with Adrian, always keeping a careful distance. But Noah had started gravitating toward her, showing her his drawings, telling her about his day. "Hi, Noah. How was art class? We made animals out of clay. I made a lion. Want to see?" He pulled a misshapen clay creature from his pocket. It was supposed to be a lion, Evelyn supposed, though it looked more like a lumpy dog with spikes. "It's wonderful," she said, and meant it. Noah beamed, then turned to Adrian. "Are we going to the park?" "Not today, buddy. But the doctor needs to take a quick sample from your mouth. It won't hurt, I promise." The technician was gentle and efficient. Noah barely noticed the cheek swab, too busy telling Evelyn about the fort he and Marcus were building. "It's going to be huge. With towers and a drawbridge and everything." "That sounds amazing. You could come see it sometime. If you want." The offer was so innocent, so hopeful, that Evelyn felt tears prick her eyes. "Maybe I will." When the samples were collected and sent to the lab, Adrian drove them back to the city in silence. The results would take 3 to 5 business days. "I'm scared," Adrian admitted as they pulled into their building's garage. "Of what?" "Of what happens when we know for sure. Of what it means for us." Evelyn didn't have an answer to that. That night, she dreamed of a dark-haired boy running through a house she didn't recognize, calling for someone she couldn't see. She woke with her heart pounding, Adrian sleeping fitfully beside her. They'd been sharing a bed again, though neither of them had discussed it. Some habits were too ingrained to break, even in crisis. Margaret called 2 days later with more information. "I found out why the money stopped," she said without preamble. "Lena's father died 8 months ago. Heart attack. Her mother followed 6 weeks later. Stroke. Both of them? Within weeks of each other? It happens sometimes with couples married that long." The trust was set to continue payments for Lena's lifetime, but it required an executor. With both parents dead and Lena their only child, there was no one to authorize the transfers. The money stopped automatically. So she was truly alone when she got sick. Completely. No family. No support system. Just a 6-year-old son and a terminal diagnosis. Evelyn felt an unexpected wave of sympathy for Lena. Whatever choices she'd made, she'd died alone and afraid, desperate to protect her child. Was there a will? Any instructions about Noah? Lena's will left everything to Noah. But everything was just the contents of her apartment and a bank account with $7,000. The family money went to various charities. The Brooks estate was tied up in trusts that specifically excluded Lena's descendants. Excluded? They wrote her child out of the will? They didn't know about her child. But the trust documents are old, from when Lena was a teenager. Standard language to prevent fortune hunters from marrying into the family. Any descendants of Lena's would only inherit if she was married at the time of her parents' death. Which she wasn't. Which meant Noah had no claim to the Brooks fortune. Unless. Margaret, what happens if it's proven that Noah's father comes from an acceptable family? What if his father has his own wealth? You mean if Adrian is proven to be the father? Yes. The trust language doesn't cover that scenario. But it's possible a court could rule that Noah has a claim to the Brooks estate if his father is established and his mother's wishes are shown to have been influenced by her family's requirements. In other words, if they could prove Lena had hidden Noah from Adrian because her family wouldn't approve, Noah might have legal standing to challenge the estate distribution. How much money are we talking about? Evelyn asked. The Brooks estate was valued at approximately $200 million. Evelyn's breath caught. Does Adrian know about this? Margaret asked. Not yet. Might want to tell him before the DNA results come back. Because if Noah is his son, this changes everything. Evelyn ended the call and sat in her office, staring at nothing. $200 million. A fortune that could secure Noah's future forever. But only if Adrian was his father. Only if they could prove Lena had been forced to hide her son. The DNA results arrived on Friday afternoon via email. Evelyn was alone when the notification appeared on her phone. Adrian was at a board meeting. She sat on the sofa, hands trembling, and opened the attachment. The words swam before her eyes. Probability of paternity, 99.997%. Adrian was Noah's father. She read the document 3 times, making sure she understood. There was no doubt. No ambiguity. The child Lena had raised alone for 6 years was Adrian's biological son. Evelyn should have felt angry. Vindicated. Justified in her suspicions. Instead, she just felt sad. Sad for Lena, who'd died alone rather than reach out sooner. Sad for Noah, who'd never know his mother again. Sad for Adrian, who'd missed 6 years of his son's life. Sad for herself, for the marriage she'd thought she had. When Adrian came home 2 hours later, Evelyn was still on the sofa, the DNA report open on her tablet. He saw her face and went pale. The results came. It wasn't a question. He's yours, Evelyn said quietly. Noah is your son. Adrian sat down heavily, as if his legs had given out. He didn't ask to see the report. Didn't question the results. He just sat there, processing what he'd always known but hadn't wanted to confirm. What do we do now? He finally asked. Evelyn told him about the Brooks estate. About the money. About the legal possibilities. With each revelation, Adrian's expression grew darker. I don't want their money, he said when she finished. It's not about what you want. It's about what Noah deserves. That money could secure his education, his future. I can provide for him. I don't need the Brooks family's blood money. This isn't about your pride, Adrian. This is about what's legally his. What his mother might have wanted him to have if her family hadn't written him out of existence. We don't know what Lena wanted. She never mentioned the money. Never suggested I should pursue it. She was dying. She had 3 weeks to make arrangements. Maybe she didn't have time. Or maybe she trusted you to figure it out. Adrian stood and walked to the bar, but he didn't pour a drink. He just stood there, gripping the edge of the counter. If we pursue this, if we go after the Brooks money, we'll have to expose everything. Why Lena left. Why she hid Noah. Her family will be dragged through the mud. And Noah will grow up knowing his grandfather hated his father enough that his mother had to run away. Noah will grow up knowing his mother loved him enough to sacrifice everything, Evelyn countered. That's not a bad story. It's a story about fear and hiding. I don't want that for him. Then what do you want? Adrian turned to face her, and the pain in his eyes was raw. I want to turn back time. I want to be the man Lena needed me to be 7 years ago. I want to not have pushed her away. I want to have been there when Noah was born. I want, his voice broke. I want my son to know his mother. I want her not to be dead. The confession hung between them, more honest than anything Adrian had said in weeks. Evelyn stood and crossed to him, taking his hands. You can't change the past, she said quietly. None of us can. But you can choose what happens next. You can choose to fight for your son's future. To make sure he has every advantage, every opportunity. To honor Lena's sacrifice by giving Noah the life she couldn't. And what about us? Adrian looked at her, really looked at her. What about our marriage? It was the question Evelyn had been avoiding. I don't know, she admitted. I'm angry at you, Adrian. I'm hurt that you lied. I'm struggling with the fact that you have a child with another woman. But I also understand why you did what you did. And I see how you are with Noah. You love him. I do. God help me, I love him so much it terrifies me. Then we figure it out. We go to counseling. We rebuild trust. We make a new normal that includes Noah. You do that? After everything? I do that because love isn't just about the good times. It's about choosing each other even when it's hard. Even when you're hurt and angry and scared. She squeezed his hands. But Adrian, if you ever lie to me again, if you ever hide something this big, we're done. I mean it. No second chances. I swear to you, Evelyn. Complete honesty from now on. Whatever you need to know, I'll tell you. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust that this crisis had taught him something. But trust, once broken, was fragile. We start with Noah, she said. We tell him the truth. That you're his father. That we're going to be a family. And if he doesn't want that? He's 6. He doesn't get to make that choice. But we make it as easy on him as we can. We go slow. We let him adjust. That weekend, they brought Noah to the penthouse for the first time. He stood in the entryway, eyes wide, taking in the space. This is your house, he breathed. It's our house, Adrian corrected gently. And we'd like it to be yours too. Noah looked up at him, confused. What do you mean? Adrian knelt down to the boy's level. Evelyn stood behind them, her heart pounding. Noah, do you remember when your mama told you I would take care of you? The boy nodded. There's a reason she trusted me with that. A reason she wanted you to be with me specifically. Adrian took a deep breath. I'm your father, Noah. Your biological father. Noah's face scrunched up in confusion. But Mama said my daddy was gone. She thought I was. We lost touch a long time ago. But I'm here now. And I want to be your dad, if that's okay with you. The boy processed this, his young mind working through the implications. So you're not just my guardian? You're my actual dad? Yes. Like, forever? Like forever. Noah's eyes filled with tears. I wanted a dad so bad. All the kids at school have dads. And I just had Mama. And then Mama got sick and I thought, he hiccuped. I thought I'd be alone. Adrian pulled him into a hug, and Evelyn saw tears streaming down her husband's face. You're not alone, buddy. You have me. And you have Evelyn. We're your family now. Noah pulled back, looking at Evelyn with those eyes that were so much like Lena's. Are you my mom now? The question knocked the breath from Evelyn's lungs. She started, then stopped. What was the right answer? She wasn't his mother. She'd never be Lena. But she could be something. Someone who cared for him. Someone who chose to love him. I'd like to be part of your family, she said carefully. If that's okay with you. I know I'm not your mama. No one could replace her. But I could be, someone who loves you. Someone who's here for you. Noah considered this seriously, then nodded. Okay. That's good. Just like that, with a child's simple acceptance, their family expanded. Over the next few weeks, they fell into a new rhythm. Noah moved into the penthouse, taking over the guest room that Evelyn had slept in during those first awful nights. They enrolled him in a private school nearby. Adrian adjusted his schedule to do morning drop-offs. Evelyn found herself doing pickups, learning about Noah's day, helping with homework. It wasn't easy. Noah had nightmares about Lena. He struggled with separation anxiety, terrified that Adrian would disappear like his mother had. He tested boundaries, acting out in ways that made Evelyn want to scream. But there were good moments too. Noah teaching them the card game Lena had invented. Family dinners where the boy chattered about his day. Quiet evenings where Noah would curl up between them on the sofa, content just to be close. And slowly, painfully, Evelyn felt herself falling in love with the child who had shattered her marriage. The question of the Brooks estate loomed over them. Evelyn's investigator had gathered evidence, emails showing Lena's father threatening to cut her off if she married Adrian. Financial records proving the offshore payments. Testimony from neighbors in Portland about Lena's struggles as a single mother. It was enough to make a case. Enough to argue that Noah had been deliberately excluded from his inheritance through no fault of his own. "I still don't want to do it," Adrian said one night, after Noah was asleep. They were in bed, Evelyn reading while Adrian stared at the ceiling. "Why not?" "Because it feels like using Lena's death for money. Like capitalizing on her tragedy. It's not about Lena. It's about Noah. About making sure he has options. He has options. He has me. He has us." Evelyn set down her book. "What if something happens to you? What if the company fails? What if there's another recession, another crisis? That money could be Noah's safety net. Nothing's going to happen to me. You don't know that. Adrian, please. Let me at least consult with the attorney. See what our options are." He was quiet for a long moment, then nodded reluctantly. "Fine. But if we move forward, we do it carefully. I won't have Noah's story splashed across tabloids." The attorney was enthusiastic about their case. "The Brooks estate is still in probate," she explained during their consultation. "No beneficiaries have been confirmed yet. If we file a claim now, arguing that Noah was deliberately excluded based on discriminatory requirements, we have a strong case." "How strong?" Evelyn asked. "I'd say 60%. Maybe 70% if we can prove the family knew about Noah and actively worked to keep him from his mother." "They couldn't have known," Adrian interjected. "Lena hid him too well." "But they knew she was pregnant when she left, didn't they?" the attorney pressed. Adrian shifted uncomfortably. "They might have suspected." "Did you ever speak with her father after she left?" "Once. He called me 6 months after she disappeared. Asked if I knew where she was. I said no." "What else did he say?" Adrian's jaw tightened. "He said if I'd gotten his daughter pregnant, he'd make sure I never saw a dime of his money. He said I'd destroyed her life." The attorney's eyes lit up. "That's perfect. Did anyone else hear this conversation?" "It was on my office phone. My assistant at the time might have overheard parts of it." "Can we contact this assistant?" Adrian looked at Evelyn. She saw the question in his eyes. How far were they willing to go? "Contact her," Evelyn said firmly. "We need to know what she remembers." The former assistant, now retired in Florida, remembered the conversation vividly. "Mr. Brooks was furious," she said over the phone. "He was shouting so loud I could hear him from outside the office. He accused Mr. Hale of ruining his daughter's life. Said something about a baby. I always wondered what happened to Ms. Brooks after that. It was the corroboration they needed." The attorney filed the claim 3 weeks later. The story hit the press within days. CEO's secret son claims $200 million estate. Hale Industries heir fights for mother's fortune. The love child that billionaire family tried to erase. The headlines were brutal. Photographers camped outside their building. Reporters called at all hours. Noah's school had to beef up security. "This is what I was afraid of," Adrian said, watching the news coverage with barely contained fury. "This circus. It'll die down," Evelyn assured him. But she wasn't sure she believed it. The Brooks family attorneys fought back hard. They argued that Noah had no standing, that Lena had accepted the terms of her exile, that the estate distribution was legally sound. But then Margaret found something that changed everything. "You need to see this," she said, appearing at their penthouse with a file folder. She spread documents across the dining table. Letters. Dozens of them. These were in a safety deposit box Lena rented under an assumed name. She left instructions for them to be delivered to Noah on his 18th birthday. Evelyn picked up the top letter. It was addressed to Noah, written in Lena's handwriting. "My dearest boy. If you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm so sorry for that. I wanted to see you grow up. I wanted to be there for your first day of school, your first heartbreak, your graduation. But life doesn't always give us what we want. I need you to know why I made the choices I did. Why we lived alone. Why I never told you about your father until the very end. I loved your father very much. But my family couldn't accept him. When I got pregnant with you, they gave me an ultimatum: end the pregnancy and marry someone they approved of, or lose everything. I chose you. I will always choose you. But I also knew your father wasn't ready to be a parent. He was building something important, something that mattered to him. I couldn't ask him to give that up. So I left, and I raised you alone. My parents paid me to stay away. It was blood money, but I took it because it meant I could give you a good life. It meant I could be there for you instead of working 3 jobs. I made a lot of mistakes, Noah. But you were never one of them. You are the best thing I ever did. If you're reading this, it means your father is taking care of you now. Give him a chance, baby. He's a good man. He just needed time to grow up." Evelyn set down the letter, tears streaming down her face. There were more. Letters for every birthday Lena would miss. Letters full of advice and love and memories. And at the bottom of the pile, a letter addressed to Adrian. Evelyn handed it to him silently. He read it, his hands shaking, and when he finished, he looked destroyed. "She forgave me," he whispered. "After everything, she forgave me." The letters were filed as evidence in the estate case. The Brooks family attorneys had no response to Lena's own words, written in her final weeks, explaining exactly why she'd hidden her son from his grandfather. The settlement came 4 months later. Noah would receive a trust fund valued at $75 million, accessible when he turned 25. In the meantime, a monthly allowance would be paid to Adrian as Noah's guardian for the boy's care and education. It was more than they'd hoped for. Less than Noah was technically owed. But it was closure. The day the settlement was finalized, Adrian took Noah to Lena's grave. Evelyn went with them, standing back to give them space. "Hi, Mama," Noah said to the headstone, his small voice carrying in the quiet cemetery. "We won. Just like you wanted. Adrian says I'll have money for college now. And for whatever I want to do." He placed a drawing on the grave. It showed 3 stick figures holding hands in front of a house. "That's me and Dad and Evelyn," he explained. "We're a family now. Like you wanted." Evelyn watched her husband kneel beside his son, both of them crying, and felt something shift in her chest. They'd been broken. All of them. But somehow, in the breaking, they'd found a way to heal. That night, after Noah was asleep, Evelyn and Adrian sat on the balcony overlooking the city. "I never thanked you," Adrian said quietly. "For what?" "For staying. For choosing us, even when you had every reason to leave." Evelyn took his hand. "I didn't do it for you. I did it for me. Because I realized that love isn't just about the fairy tale. It's about showing up when things get hard. It's about choosing each other even when it would be easier to walk away. I don't deserve you." "Probably not," she agreed, smiling slightly. "But you're stuck with me anyway." He kissed her hand, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "I love you, Evelyn Hale. Thank you for giving me a second chance. Don't waste it, she warned. But her tone was gentle. Inside, Noah called out from his room. Bad dream. They went to him together, and Evelyn sat on the edge of his bed while Adrian rubbed his back. It's okay, buddy, Adrian murmured. We're here. We're not going anywhere. Noah blinked sleepily at them. Promise? Promise, Evelyn said, surprising herself with how much she meant it. The boy smiled and closed his eyes, already drifting back to sleep. As they walked back to their bedroom, Evelyn realized something. She'd come into this situation expecting to lose her marriage. Expecting betrayal to destroy everything she'd built with Adrian. Instead, she'd gained a son. A family. A deeper, harder, more honest kind of love. It wasn't the life she'd planned, but maybe it was the life she needed. 6 months later, Evelyn stood in front of a judge, Adrian beside her, Noah between them. Do you, Evelyn Marie Hale, consent to adopt Noah Alexander Brooks as your son, knowing that this will give you all the rights and responsibilities of a legal parent? Evelyn looked down at the boy who'd changed everything. He grinned up at her, missing his 2 front teeth, his hand tight in hers. I do, she said. The gavel came down. Noah Alexander Brooks became Noah Alexander Hale. Not just Adrian's son. Theirs. In the courthouse hallway afterward, Noah threw his arms around Evelyn's waist. I have a mom again, he said, his voice muffled against her jacket. Evelyn hugged him back, something fierce and protective swelling in her chest. Yeah, buddy. You do. She looked at Adrian over Noah's head and saw her own emotions reflected in his face. Gratitude. Love. Relief. They'd made it. Through secrets and lies and pain. Through lawyers and settlements and public scrutiny. Through grief and anger and doubt. They'd made it to the other side. That evening, they had a small celebration at home. Just the 3 of them and a cake that Noah had helped Evelyn bake. It was lopsided and covered in too much frosting, but it was perfect. Make a wish, Adrian said, lighting the candles. Noah closed his eyes, thought hard, then blew out all 7 candles in one breath. What did you wish for? Evelyn asked. Can't tell or it won't come true, Noah said seriously. But then he grinned. But I think it already did. Later, after Noah was in bed and the kitchen was clean, Evelyn and Adrian sat together on the sofa, her head on his shoulder. Do you ever wonder what Lena would think? Evelyn asked. About all of this? Every day, Adrian admitted. I like to think she'd be happy. That she'd see Noah thriving and know she made the right choice. She did. Not the easy choice. But the right one. Adrian turned to look at her. So did you. Staying with me. Adopting Noah. You could have walked away. Most people would have. I'm not most people. No, he agreed, kissing her forehead. You're not. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights through the windows. The view that had once seemed cold now felt warm. Home. We should tell him, Evelyn said suddenly. Tell him what? About his mother. About how much she loved him. About the choices she made. He's still young. He's old enough to understand love. Old enough to understand sacrifice. Evelyn sat up. He should know his mother's story. The real story. Not the sanitized version. Adrian considered this, then nodded slowly. You're right. When he's ready, we'll tell him. Everything. Everything, Evelyn agreed. It was a promise. To each other. To Noah. To Lena's memory. To tell the truth, even when it hurt. To honor the past while building the future. To be a family, not despite their broken beginnings, but because of them. 1 year after the DNA test that confirmed everything, Evelyn sat in Noah's room, reading him a bedtime story. It was a new routine they developed, just the two of them, while Adrian cleaned up from dinner. "Evelyn?" Noah said, interrupting the story. "Yeah, buddy? I'm glad Mama sent me to Dad. I'm glad I have you now." Evelyn's throat tightened. "I'm glad too. Do you think Mama knows? That I'm okay?" Evelyn thought about Lena's letters. About a woman who'd sacrificed everything for her son. About the love that had survived death. "I think she knows," Evelyn said softly. "I think she's watching over you. And I think she's proud of the boy you're becoming." Noah smiled, satisfied, and snuggled into his pillow. "I think so too." As Evelyn turned off the light and closed the door, she felt Adrian's arms wrap around her from behind. "You're good at this," he murmured. "At what?" "Being a mom." Evelyn leaned back against him. "I'm learning." "We both are." They stood there in the hallway, holding each other, listening to the quiet sounds of their son settling into sleep. It wasn't perfect. There were still hard days. Days when Noah asked about Lena and Evelyn didn't know what to say. Days when Adrian worked too late and Evelyn felt like a single parent. Days when the weight of their complicated history felt too heavy. But there were more good days. Days when Noah ran to her after school, excited to show her a good grade. Days when Adrian came home early with flowers for no reason. Days when they felt like a real family, not one cobbled together from tragedy and secrets. And slowly, day by day, they built something new. Not a replacement for what they'd lost, but something different. Something earned through honesty and effort and choice. Forgiveness didn't erase the past. But it taught them how to face it together. And together, they discovered, was enough. Some endings aren't perfect, but they're honest. If this story moved you, let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you were Evelyn, would you have forgiven Adrian? Like, subscribe, and join us again at Story Heart Studio, where every heart has a story.